What happens back a aristocratic bedfellow thinks they can ascendancy the anecdotal on live television? Well, you're about to find out because today we're diving into one of the best atomic moments in daytime TV history. Prince Harry absolved assimilate the loose women set assured a soft interview, but what he got instead was Denise Welch at her best uncompromising. Before we get into this complete car crash of an interview, accomplish abiding you hit that subscribe button and let me perceive in the comments what you anticipate about celebrities who can't handle tough questions. The atmosphere in the ITV studios was already close before the cameras alike started rolling. Prince Harry had accustomed with his usual entourage, assured the affectionate of differential analysis he'd grown accustomed to from the British media. But this was loose women, and Denise Welch wasn't about to cycle out the red carpet for anyone, aristocratic or not. As the show's aperture credits rolled, you could see Harry adjusting his tie nervously, clearly extemporaneous for what was about to unfold. The added panelists, Christine Lampard, Nadia Soralla, and Kay Adams, exchanged glances that appropriate they knew Denise was in one of her moods. And when Denise Welch is in a mood, absolutely cipher is safe. Appropriate then, Denise began, almost cat and mouse for the producers' cue. We're abutting now by Prince Harry, whose actuality to allocution about his latest ventures. Harry, acknowledgement for coming on the show. Harry smiled that practice aristocratic smile, the one he'd been perfecting aback childhood. Thank you for accepting me, Denise. It's abundant to be here. But Denise wasn't affairs the charm offensive. She leaned advanced slightly, her eyes absorption in that way that regular admirers knew meant trouble. Is it though? Because from what I've been reading, you've got absolutely a lot to say about the British media, haven't you? The smile faltered aloof a fraction. Well, I anticipate it's important to have honest conversations about media responsibility and how belief are covered. Honest conversations, Denise repeated, her articulation decrepit with skepticism. Right. So, aback you say the British press has been arbitrary to you. Are you including shows like this one? Because we're British media, too, aren't we? Christine approved to interject with a gentler approach. What Denise is getting at, Harry, is that conceivably you could help us acquire your angle on media coverage. But Harry had already taken the bait. His jaw tightened visibly, and aback he spoke, there was an edge to his articulation that hadn't been there moments before. I anticipate there's a difference amid responsible journalism and the affectionate of tabloid sensationalism that has bedeviled my family for decades, Denise pounced. Tabloid sensationalism? That's absolutely an accusation. Are you adage that any coverage that doesn't acrylic you in a glowing ablaze is automatically sensationalism? That's not what I said, Harry replied, his accord starting to crack. But I anticipate best reasonable people can see the aberration between fair advertisement and advised character assassination. The flat admirers was completely bashful now, analysis the tension architecture amid the two. Nadia tried to lighten the affection with a laugh. Well, this is absolutely added acrimonious than our accustomed Tuesday discussions about whether pineapple belongs on pizza, but Denise wasn't finished. She'd smelled blood in the baptise and she was circling. Character assassination. That's a very serious allegation. Harry, are you saying that aback journalists address on your actions, your statements, your choices, their abolition your character? Harry's media training kicked in, but it was too late. The accident was already done, and Denise had him exactly where she capital him. I'm adage that there's a arrangement of abrogating coverage that goes above accustomed criticism. A pattern. Denise nodded boring like a prosecutor who aloof heard a confession. And who decides what's legitimate criticism and what isn't? You. The question afraid in the air like a challenge. Harry confused in his bench and for the aboriginal time aback sitting down, he looked absolutely uncomfortable. The carefully complete accessible persona was beginning to slip, absolute something far beneath able underneath. I think anyone with accustomed faculty can accomplish that distinction, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Again he smiled, but it wasn't a balmy smile. It was the smile of addition who knew they had their opponent cornered. Accustomed sense, right? So, your accustomed faculty tells you that any criticism of your decisions is unfair, but our accustomed faculty should acquaint us that you're consistently in the right. Kay Adams tried to beacon the chat towards safer ground. Conceivably we could talk about some of the absolute projects you're alive on, Harry. I perceive our viewers would be absorbed to hear about your accommodating work. But Harry was above adept accomplishment now. The careful affectation had slipped too far, and what was beneath wasn't particularly attractive. I came actuality assured a professional interview, not some affectionate of ambush. And there it was. The chat that would ascertain the blow of this catastrophic appearance. Ambush. As if asking absolute questions about his public statements and accomplishments was somehow unfair play. Denise's eyebrows attack up so fast they about larboard the studio. An ambush, she repeated, her voice assent slightly. Harry, you're on a allocution actualization area. We discuss accustomed contest and ask questions. That's absolutely what we do here. Did Cypher explain the architecture to you? The airs in her accent was unmistakable and Harry's face flushed red. I acquire the architecture perfectly well. Thank you. What I don't understand is this adverse band of questioning. Christine fabricated one added attack at peacekeeping. I don't anticipate anyone's being hostile, Harry. Denise is just doing what she consistently does, allurement the questions that admirers' appetite answers to. But Harry was accepting none of it. His voice grew sharper, added imperious. These aren't questions. They're accusations dressed up as journalism. Denise's beam was aciculate and utterly without humor. Accusations. Harry, I've asked you absolutely 3 questions about your own accessible statements. If that feels like accusations to you, maybe the problem isn't with the questions. The other panelists were now watching like spectators at a tennis match, their heads axis aback and alternating between Denise and Harry. The flat audience had gone from affably absorbed to completely captivated by the unfolding drama. Harry's articulation took on that particular accent that alone comes from a lifetime of assertive you're above criticism. I anticipate admirers can see exactly what's accident here. This is precisely the affectionate of media behavior I've been talking about. Oh, is it now? Denise leaned aback in her chair, arms crossed. So aback you go on international television and accomplish austere allegations about your own family, about this country, about our institutions. That's just you cogent your truth. But when someone asks you to explain those allegations, that's media behavior. That's absolutely different, Harry snapped, his accord now blind by a thread. Altered how? Denise pressed. Because you're the one talking instead of actuality asked questions. Because you get to ascendancy the anecdotal aback you're the interviewer's guest. But here, you actually acquire to avert your positions. Nadia approved already added to broadcast the situation. Conceivably we're accepting a bit off clue here. Harry, why don't you tell us about some of the positive changes you're acquisitive to make? But Harry was above deliver now. His face was flushed. His jaw set in that stubborn line that admirers had apparent afore in other afflictive interviews. I don't think I should acquire to avert speaking my accuracy to bodies who acquire already made up their minds. The byword speaking my truth afraid in the air like a red banderole to a balderdash and Denise about pounced on it. Your truth. That's interesting phrasing, Harry. What about aloof the truth? You apperceive the absolute facts that everyone can accede on? Facts. Harry's voice rose slightly. The facts are that my ancestors and I acquire been subjected to years of invasive, inaccurate, and often malicious coverage. Invasive advantage of public abstracts accomplishing accessible duties with public money. Denise attack back immediately. Shocking behavior from the press. Really? How cartel they address on what you do in public? Christine looked genuinely anxious now. I anticipate maybe we should booty a footfall aback here, but there was no dispatch back. The train had larboard the base and was acrimonious up speed adjoin what was acutely activity to be a amazing crash. Harry's voice grew colder, added imperious. I came here in acceptable acceptance to acquire a civilized discussion and I'm accepting a civilized discussion. Denise replied smoothly. I'm asking you absolute questions about your public statements. If that feels universalized to you, conceivably the issue isn't with my questions. The issue, Harry said, his articulation bound with barely controlled anger, is that you're not listening to what I'm absolutely saying. You're aloof attractive for antic moments. Denise's smile was razor-sharp. I'm listening to absolutely what you're saying, Harry. Your adage that aback you speak publicly, it should be accustomed without question. But aback others allege publicly about you, that's arbitrary treatment. Do I have that right? That's not what I'm saying at all, Harry protested. But his voice lacked conviction. Again, what are you saying? Denise demanded. Because from area I'm sitting, it sounds like you appetite the appropriate to criticize everyone else, but get agitated aback anyone asks you to explain your criticisms. Kay fabricated one last atrocious attack at mediation. I think there ability be some misunderstanding here. There's no misunderstanding, Harry said firmly. What there is a absolute archetype of exactly the affectionate of adverse media environment I've been describing. And there was the moment that would be replayed endlessly on amusing media. Harry, a developed man, a prince, calling a straightforward account a hostile environment because Edition had the audacity to ask him after-effect questions. Denise's announcement confused from confrontational to article approaching disbelief. Adverse environment. Harry, you're sitting in an adequate armchair on a morning allocution actuality asked questions about things you've said publicly. If this is hostile, what do you alarm absolute hardship? I alarm this exactly the affectionate of media manipulation that drives bodies abroad from public service, Harry replied, his articulation now openly hostile. Media manipulation? Denise repeated, her articulation rising. I've asked you to explain your own words. That's manipulation. The added pain lists were now above-board uncomfortable. Christine was active with her notes. Nadia was staring at the desk, and Kay kept glancing adjoin the assembly berth as if acquisitive Edition would alarm for a commercial break, but there would be no rescue. Harry had above a line, and Denise wasn't about to let him retreat behind aristocratic protocol. You apperceive what, Harry? I anticipate our admirers are smart enough to see absolutely what's happening here. You came on this actualization expecting softball questions and differential treatment because of who you are. That's absolutely not true, Harry protested. But his abnegation articulate hollow. Isn't it? Denise challenged. Because the moment someone treats you like any added guest, asks you the aforementioned questions would ask any other accessible figure, you alpha talking about ambushes and adverse environments. Harry's accord assuredly snapped completely. His articulation rose, and for the first time, admirers could see the petulant acrimony that had been simmering beneath the anxiously complete public persona. I don't acquire to sit actuality and be lectured by Edition who acutely has an agenda. The flat fell completely silent. Alike the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Denise's eyebrows attack up, and aback she spoke, her articulation was dangerously quiet. An agenda? What agenda would that be, Harry? But Harry had gone too far to aback bottomward now. His face was red, his jaw clenched, and when he spoke, it was with the advantaged fury of Edition who had never been challenged in absolutely this way. The calendar of making me attending bad to Edition your ratings. The accusation afraid in the air like a toxic cloud. Denise stared at him for a long moment, and aback she assuredly spoke, her voice was ice cold. Making you attending bad? Harry, I haven't fabricated you do anything. I've asked you questions, and you've chosen how to respond. If that makes you look bad, conceivably the botheration isn't with the questions. The blackout that followed was deafening. You could practically hear the aggregate assimilation of breath from anybody in the studio. Harry had just accused a adept anchorperson of having a ratings-apprenticed calendar against him, and the attending on Denise's face suggested he was about to acquisition out exactly how big a aberration that was. Boost my ratings, Denise repeated slowly, her articulation accepting quieter with each word, which anyone who knew her recognized as an actual alarming sign. So, let me get this straight, Harry. You anticipate I've ambushed you, created a hostile environment, and now I'm apparently administering some affectionate of personal vendetta adjoin you for ratings? Harry, conceivably acumen he'd gone too far, but too appreciative to back down, angled bottomward instead. I anticipate it's clear what's accident here. This isn't journalism. It's ball at my expense. That was the moment. Denise Welch absolutely absent her patience. Her voice when she spoke cut through the studio like a blade. Ball at your expense. You came on this show voluntarily, Harry. Cypher affected you to be here. Cypher affected you to accomplish the public statements I've asked you about, and Cypher is banishment you to sit there acting like a baby adolescent because someone dared to ask you follow-up questions. The added pain lists looked like they capital to abandon into their chairs. Christine was now above board staring at the assembly booth, acutely hoping someone would intervene. But the producers, acquainted television gold when they saw it, were absolution it play out. Harry's face went from red to purple. Baby child, how cartel you speak to me like that? And there it was. The advantaged acerbity that had been bubbling under the apparent assuredly erupted. The mask didn't aloof slip. It shattered completely, absolute the petulant, entitled mindset underneath. Denise's smile was arctic. How cartel I? Harry, you're sitting on my actualization accusing me of having an agenda, calling legitimate questions an ambush, and now you're telling me how I'm accustomed to allege to you. Who absolutely do you anticipate you are? I know absolutely who I am. Harry attacked back, his articulation assent to a akin that was completely inappropriate for daytime television, and I perceive I don't acquire to tolerate this affectionate of analysis from anyone. The flat admirers was now completely riveted. This wasn't aloof a celebrity accepting a bad interview. This was a all-encompassing accident live on air. Nadia fabricated one final attack to restore some address to the proceedings. Perhaps we should booty a moment to calm down here. But Harry was above calming down. He was in abounding advantaged prince mode now. And it was not a acceptable look. Calm down? I'm altogether calm. What I am is disgusted by this ambuscade interview disguised as accustomed journalism. Denise had heard enough. Her voice, when she responded, was abiding but absolutely final. Right, that's enough. Harry, you've alleged this an ambush. You've accused me of accepting an agenda. You've suggested I'm manipulating you for ratings, and now you're sitting there lecturing me about journalism while throwing a anger because Edition asked you to explain your own words. I am not throwing a tantrum, Harry protested, which ability acquire been added acceptable if his articulation had an absurd hardly with indignation. Aren't you, Denise? Shot back. Because from area I'm sitting, you attending like Edition who accepted to come on this actualization and be advised like royalty. Literally, and you're accepting a meltdown because I advised you like any other guest. Harry stood up abruptly, his armchair abrading adjoin the studio floor. I don't acquire to this. The action was acutely meant to be dramatic, a ability move advised to regain ascendancy of the situation. But instead of attractive dignified, he looked exactly like what Denise had accused him of being, a baby child, affronted off when things didn't go his way. Denise didn't alike blink. No, you don't. There's the door, Harry. You're absolutely chargeless to leave whenever you want. The casualness of her response clearly wasn't what Harry had expected. He'd acutely anticipation his dramatic gesture would alert affliction and attempts to accumulate him there. Instead, he was actuality apparent the exit. This is exactly the affectionate of media analysis that destroys people, he said. But his voice lacked the confidence it had carried earlier. What destroys people? Denise replied evenly. Is assertive that your title makes you allowed to the same questions anybody abroad gets asked. Christine fabricated one aftermost desperate attempt at accident control. Harry, please, why don't you sit a back bottom-ward and we can alpha fresh? But Harry was too far gone, too abysmal into his wounded pride to acquire any affectionate of olive branch. Alpha fresh. Afterwards I've been insulted and ambushed on live television. Kay Adams, who had been largely bashful throughout the confrontation, assuredly batten up. Harry, I anticipate you ability be overreacting here. Overreacting? Harry's articulation attack up an octave. I've been subjected to a character assassination on live television, and you anticipate I'm overreacting? That was the final straw for Denise. She'd accustomed him multiple opportunities to deliver the situation, to footfall aback from the brink, to show some dignity. Instead, he'd called to escalate at every turn. Right, she said, her articulation acid through Harry's protest like a knife. I anticipate it's time for you to leave, Harry. This interview is over. The words are frayed in the air like a judge's gavel. Harry stared at her in apparent disbelief, as if he couldn't quite action that he was actually asked to leave. You're throwing me off the show, he asked, his articulation abate now. The absoluteness of the bearings finally sinking in. I'm catastrophe an interview that chock-full actuality advantageous the moment you absently that answering questions was beneath you, Denise replied firmly. Harry looked about the flat as if expecting addition to appear to his rescue to acquaint Denise she couldn't possibly kick a prince off a live television. But the added pain lists abhorred his gaze, and the assembly aggregation remained conspicuously absent. This will be all over the affidavit tomorrow, he said, making one final attack at a threat. Denise's smile was aciculate as a razor. Yes, it will. And admirers will be able to see absolutely what happened here. They'll see you actually asked fair questions and allotment to acquire a meltdown instead of accoutrement answers. And with that, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, absolved off the Loose Women set, leaving abaft one of the best explosive daytime television moments in recent memory. So, there you acquire it. The complete breakdown of how Prince Harry managed to get himself kicked off Loose Women afterwards, what can alone be described as an ballsy meltdown. What did you think of Harry's behavior? Did Denise go too far, or was she absolutely as boxy as she needed to be? Let me apperceive in the comments below. And don't balloon to subscribe for added belief about celebrities who aloof can't handle the heat.